Toothpicks and clam chowder share a common introduction. They were both first introduced to the public at a famous Boston-based restaurant, claimed to be the oldest continually operated in the nation. I'm here at Salisbury Beach State Park, and what better place to talk about the recipe for New England clam chowder. These are the ingredients you're going to need for New England style clam chowder. The first thing is a 5-ounce can of evaporated milk, 1/3 of a cup of instant mashed potatoes, and 1 teaspoon of butter granules. I've mixed these into this cup and we'll put them into a small plastic bag marked clam chowder potato. Seal that up. Make sure you get all the air out of it. And I do that just by sort of rolling it tight so that there's a bit of a vacuum in the bag. You will also need a number of spices, and the spices that we're putting into this chowder is 1 teaspoon of minced onion, 1/8 of a teaspoon of thyme, 1/8 of a teaspoon of rosemary, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I prefer the coarse kosher salt, and a dash of white pepper. If you don't have white pepper, black pepper works just fine, but the white pepper is a little finer and it breaks up into the chowder a little more evenly. All of those go into a small plastic baggie marked clam chowder spices. And we'll put those into our paper bag marked clam chowder. In addition, you'll want a 6.5-ounce can of minced clams. Now these are in clam broth, and I recommend that you get the clams that are in clam broth. So I'm going to put in the clams. I'm going to put in the evaporated milk, the potatoes, and the spices. Now the last 2 items are optional. The first option is a fresh potato. This potato is about 2 inches round, and that will keep very nicely. I'm going to put that in. And although not necessary, chowder wouldn't be anything without crackers. Now these are oyster crackers, and I was able to find them in a special multi-pack edition of 15 sets of oyster crackers, this sized, and I'm going to put that in there as well to have with my chowder. Now the last item that I'm going to add in is a garnish. Again, this is an option, but this is bacon jerky, and when you're making the chowder, you'll be able to just add the bacon on the top. If you were making New England Clam Chowder, you would usually use salt pork to start, and then you would fry the onions in the salt pork. In order to give you sort of that real New England sense, I've chosen this bacon jerky, and at the end of the recipe we'll just break some up and we'll use it as a garnish on top. And tonight I'm going to make, with my mess kit, the quintessential New England meal, New England Clam Chowder. So to start, I'm going to need a pot, and I'm going to take that out from my mess kit. I'm going to use the smaller pot this evening, and I'll need a measuring cup. Put this cup aside, take the pot out, and set the pot in the frying pan aside as well. I will also need the lid for this. To start, I'm going to open the can of clams and remove the ingredients. We have the evaporated milk that we put in. We have the clam chowder spices. This is the clam chowder potatoes. I'm going to set those aside. We also have a bag of oyster crackers, one small potato, and the can of clams. Put the bag aside for now. The other items you will need is, if you have them, a can opener to open the clams, a church key type can opener to open the evaporated milk, a sharp knife for cutting the potatoes, a cutting board, and a vegetable peeler. Now, the knife is not necessary, or the cutting board. You can certainly cut the potato using just one of the plates, or you can cut it using a knife from your mess kit. You can open both of the cans by using a Swiss Army knife, such as the one I have here, and the can opener will certainly do that job if you have that. Your Swiss Army knife would also peel the potato just fine, but since I have the peeler, I'm going to use it. I'm going to peel this potato and cut them into small cubes, and I'll come back when I've completed that step. Now I've peeled and rinsed the potato and cut it into 27 cubes about this size. I'm going to set those aside for right now, because the next thing that I want to do is I want to drain the liquid from the minced clams. To do that, I'm going to open the clams. And pour the liquid into the cup. Once you have the can open with the clam juice, go ahead and pour that clam juice right into the cup. You'll get about a half a cup of liquid and pour that directly into the pot.
You left it downstairs. You left it over there.
If you don't have a half a cup of liquid, top it off with some water. I'm going to just add a dash more water to the pot. Oh, about maybe a quarter of a cup. And set the water aside. As you can see, that clam juice is very sort of milky colored. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to light our stove. This evening I'm using the MSR Pocket Rocket to cook this. Put that pot right onto the stove, like that. Set your clams aside with the potato. And at this point, you can go ahead and add the clam spices. Using your spoon, just stir those spices in. Make sure to get them mixed as well as you can. I know it's a little hard to see. And then put your cover on. And that's going to cook for, probably about 5 minutes or so on medium heat. Well, the history of clam chowder is an interesting one. The Union Oyster House in Boston claims that it is the oldest continuously operated restaurant in the nation. It first opened in 1826 and has been serving the public ever since. The first New England Clam Chowder recipe appeared in cookbooks around 1832, and by 1836 the Union Oyster House was serving New England Clam Chowder to the public, the first restaurant in the nation to do so. We're going to let that clam broth come up to a boil, just up to a boil, and then we'll reduce the heat down to medium and add the potatoes in. You can see that is come up to a rolling boil. We're just going to reduce the heat on this until it comes down to a relatively lower boil, not quite, just a sort of a light boil, just to roll around there. Here we go. And now we're going to stir in the diced potatoes. So take these potatoes and we're just going to slide them right into the pot gently. I don't want them to splash over. Then we'll turn up the heat a bit to bring it back up to a slight simmer. There we go. Give it another stir. Cover the pot and let that cook those potatoes for another 5 minutes or so until the potatoes are tender. You want to check it periodically just to make sure that it's not boiling too high. Nope, that looks good. Actually, we can turn the heat up a bit more. As I mentioned, Toothpicks and clam chowder share a heritage. And this is because the humble toothpick was introduced to the public in 1887. Now, Charles Forrester, a native of Maine, had observed the natives of Brazil after the Civil War. He went down to South America to work. He noticed that they had very good teeth. And they appeared to accomplish this by whittling slivers of wood and using them to clean their teeth with the slivers of wood. Well, he knew that his state of birth, Maine, had plenty of wood, and he decided that he would try to make his fortune by selling toothpicks. However, when he introduced them to the people of Boston, they didn't seem interested in them at all. And so he needed to devise a plan to sell his toothpicks. Well, being a good Yankee, the way that he went about doing that is he went to Harvard and spoke with several of the students there, and he told the students that he would pay for their meal at the Union Oyster House. All they needed to do was request a toothpick at the end of their meal. So they went to the Union Oyster House and requested toothpicks when their meal was completed, and the Union Oyster House, not wanting to be embarrassed, started purchasing toothpicks to be able to serve to the public. And this is how Forrester became one of the well-to-do in New England. Now I'm just going to take a look at this. This is actually boiling a little high. We're going to turn that down a bit. Check the potatoes. See how they're going. I feel like they're still a bit hard. The onions are starting to stick to the sides. We'll get those all right back down inside. There we go. Bring that back down to a reasonable temperature, and continue to cook this until the potatoes are soft. So the potatoes are just about done. Now you'll want to take the evaporated milk, and it's important that you shake this really well, and then open it using the church key. I'm going to remove. Hello. I'm going to remove the chowder from the stove and put in the evaporated milk. It's important that you stir this in not over the heat. Next, you'll want to mix in the clams. Oh, those look lovely. These are the clams. Just go ahead and put those right in. Spoon them right into the pot. And lastly, you want to stir in your potato flakes. These will take the thin chowder, give it a little bit more flavor, potato flavor, and increase the consistency of the chowder. Once you've got those all stirred in, return the chowder to the heat and continue to heat it through until it just begins to simmer. You don't want to boil the milk will curdle. So continue to let that heat through. That should take about 2 or 3 minutes. If it looks like it's getting too thick, go ahead and add in a little bit of water. And just go ahead and stir that mixture right up. Just remember, don't let it boil. Let's see how warm it is. Needs a few more minutes. Now, a lot of people like thick clam chowder, but if you'd prefer the New England style of clam chowder that's thin, just don't add the potatoes. The potatoes are what actually makes it thicker. You'll want to continue to stir this just to make sure that it doesn't stick on the bottom. Well, I would say that is just about done. I'm going to go ahead, turn the heat off of that, and remove the pot into a pot holder. You can see that chowder has thickened, and I am just going to move it into my little cup here, and then I'm going to garnish it using some of the bacon jerky. Pour the chowder into my bowl, or my cup is in this instance. Probably get about 2 cups out of this. I'm going to open the bacon jerky, take out a couple of slices. Well, that should be good. And now I'm just going to break these up and make them as a garnish onto the top of the chowder. Now in real New England chowder, you would use salt pork, and then the fried salt pork would be served as a garnish. Because this recipe didn't require frying the potatoes and the onions before you started, I didn't want to miss out on having my garnish. Well, there's my New England clam chowder. I'm going to go ahead and eat my dinner, and then I'm going to clean up my mess. If you find this video interesting, please be sure to like and subscribe to my videos. Share them so that other people can see them as well. And thank you for joining me.